Excavations by Cotswold Archaeology at Bankham Road, Somerton, took place in the spring of last year. The excavations followed on from a geophysical survey and trench evaluation in 2019. The 0.75 hectare site was excavated ahead of residential development on the western edge of the town by Blore Homes. The site lies in a rich landscape for Roman archaeology, approximately 5 kilometres to the west of the Fosse Way and 7 kilometres to the north of the major settlement at Ilchester. Several known villa sites are local to this area, including at Pitney, Low Ham and Littleton. Within a 1 kilometre radius of the site is the probable villa at Bankham Hill and the 3-structure farmstead and associated cemetery at Bradley Hill, which was excavated in 1968-1972 by Roger Leach. More recently, in 2019, Wessex Archaeology excavated the new school site immediately to the north of our site, just here. This site produced extensive evidence for activity dating to the Iron Age and Roman periods, including over 50 Roman period inhumations, among which were some unusual tent burials. Evaluation of the site in 2019 followed on from a geophysical survey, which indicated the presence of a ditched droveway, enclosures, and close to the northeast limits of the site, probable structural evidence. The 23 trench evaluation confirmed the survival of archaeological remains and suggested dating spanning the Middle and Late Iron Age and Roman periods. Quantities of ironworking slag, including smithing hearth bottoms, were associated with trenches in the northeast quadrant, and these were the first indications of an industrial function. This aerial view of the 2020 excavations, taken from the south, shows the two excavation areas, and to the north, the new school site, excavated by Wessex Archaeology, just here. It also shows the topography of the site, which is set on flat land within the Carey Valley. The underlying geology of the site is blue lias and mudstones, and the deeper features, such as this droveway ditch, were rock cut. The 2020 excavation was focused on two areas. The larger Area 1 to the north exposed the ditched droveway and enclosure features together with quarry pits and the stone-founded structures just inside the northeast boundary. The smaller Area 2, just here, was targeted on a penannular gully interpreted as the drip gully for a roundhouse structure. The ring gully produced only a few scraps of Iron Age type pottery. The few more diagnostic sherds from across the site were of later Iron Age type and included decorated sherds in the southwestern decorated tradition. The structural remains in Area 1A were fairly well preserved, with some surfaces and other stratigraphy surviving below the thin topsoil. 3 stone-built phases were recorded, probably representing successive rebuilds of a single-roomed structure. Dating is uncertain, although pottery and metalwork from the area span the 2nd to the later 3rd or 4th centuries. The earliest of the 5 coins from the area is a radiate of Victorinus of 268 to 270, and the latest is a nummus of Crispus dating to 324. An absence of coins or pottery dating to the second half of the 4th century may suggest that activity in this part of the site did not continue into the very late period. A substantial quantity of metalworking residue was recovered from Area 1, the large majority coming from Area 1A. This material has been the subject of a preliminary study by David Dunworth. The recovered material, shown in summary here, includes a small quantity of copper alloy casting waste, but is mostly composed of ironworking residues and clearly demonstrates metalworking activity almost certainly associated with the buildings in this area. In all, approximately 22 kilos of material were recovered, the large majority consisting of undiagnostic ironworking slag, but also including 6 kilos of smithing hearth bottoms, 0.5 kilos of hammer scale, and quantities of part burnt coal, which was used as fuel. Current interpretation is that the metallurgical waste relates to the first 2 phases of the Area 1A structures, and these strongly suggest that these buildings functioned as a blacksmith's workshop. The small quantities of copper alloy casting waste also suggest that there was some non-ferrous working. Sampling for hammer scale was undertaken for a 0.5 grid, which was targeted on the central area of the structures. A subsample of the 100-gram soil samples were wet sieved and the residues subjected to magnetic prospection. The quantities of hammer scale are small, but there was some possible concentration of material in the northeast part of the survey. The final phase of building appears to have been non-industrial, the rectangular structure possibly used as a barn or lambing shed. A number of animal bone deposits, marked on the plan, and 2 human neonate burials were associated with this activity. Some 1,600 metal artefacts were recovered from the site, 90% of these coming from Area 1A. 1,556 were of iron, including 390 nails and 722 hobnails. Approximately 20% of the metal finds were 3D recorded, a proportion of these recovered by metal detector. It's unclear the degree to which this material is associated with the operation of the smithy. The distribution of the registered artefacts in Area 1A appears to show some clustering of material to the south and northeast of the structures, which are probably suggestive of the dumping of scrap. The ironwork is for the most part composed of nails, hobnails and shoe cleats, together with a large quantity of unidentifiable fragmentary material, probably representing scrap deriving from the blacksmithing activity. Among the very few more complete objects were a socketed cleaver, a hinge pivot, an awl and a drill bit. The most significant iron object from Area 1 is a hammer, the find spot for which is shown here. The hammer is of cross-pane type, the rounded striking head balanced by a chisel-like pane set at right angles to the haft. It has an angular expansion around the eye, and the striking face is convex and slightly spread from use. The form of the hammer is typical of those identified as metalworkers' hand hammers. Its size and weight would have been suitable for general blacksmithing tasks, though not for heavy-duty work, which would have required a heavier sledge-type hammer. The association of the Somerton hammer with a smith's workshop mark it as a very unusual find from Britain. Most smiths' hammers which are known have come from hoards, including 13 from Silchester and 5 from Great Chesterford. The large majority of these, including 12 from Silchester and 4 from Great Chesterford, are of cross-pane type. This form is also seen on occasional sculptural representations of smiths at work, such as that from Aquila. A total of 24 copper alloy objects, excluding coins, was recorded, the large majority of these coming from Area 1A. There were no indications that any of this material was manufactured at the site or was intended for recycling, although this is possible. 4 brooches were recorded from Area 1A. A hinged Duratrigin or strip form brooch is the earliest. It is a type common to Dorset, Wiltshire and Somerset and probably dates to the mid-1st century AD. The other brooches are of trumpet or trumpet variant type and probably date to the 2nd century AD. Other copper alloy finds, again all from Area 1A, include cable-type bracelets probably of 3rd or 4th century type and 2 toilet implements. The tweezers is of a type with a Western British distribution and features saltire cross type decoration at the spring. The second, elaborately moulded object is distorted and incomplete. This one. It is probably a toilet spoon or spatula, the head broken at a point just above the bulbous moulding at the top, just here. The possibly zoomorphic terminal is unusual but bears some resemblance to those of penannular brooches of later Roman type. Perhaps the most noteworthy metal object from the site was from a demolition deposit within Area 1A. It is a knife or razor, although only part of the narrow blade survives. The handle is of cast copper alloy and is tubular in form, with decoration in the form of red and blue enamel set in triangular cells. The iron tang of the knife passes through the handle and what is probably a wooden pommel, traces of which survive mineralized. And this is secured at the end by an end cap of plain copper alloy. At least 12 copper alloy handles of similar form have been recorded on the Portable Antiquities Scheme database. All are of cast tubular form, featuring enamel decoration, and usually with the iron tang surviving inside. The handles differ in detail, although an example from Ancaster, Lincolnshire, shown top right, appears near identical to the Somerton find, and these may have been made in the same mould. In addition, there is one published archaeological find from Vindolanda, although the identification of this object is tentative, as the drawing for this shows it as solid and not set with enamel. The distribution of the knife handles of this form is shown here. The PAS find spots are clustered in the area of Lincolnshire and Yorkshire, and it's tempting to see a link between these finds and the evidence for manufacture of richly enamelled bronze vessels and other objects at sites in the north of England, including from Castleford, West Yorkshire. Evidence in recent years suggests that this area was an important manufacturing centre, with its products exported widely. Dating for the Somerton and similar handles is uncertain, although the main period for manufacture of enamelled vessels in northern Britain appears to have been the 2nd and possibly the earlier 3rd centuries. It is clear that Cotswold Archaeology's site at Bancan Road is just one element within a wider landscape of late prehistoric and Roman occupation. The exact nature, status and extent of the Roman activity is unclear. Building in stone need not imply high status, this tradition seemingly being strong in the area. With the possible exception of the enamelled knife handle, there are no clear indications of high status from the artefactual assemblage. The blacksmith's workshop in Area 1A is a notable survival, though it seems certain that such structures would have been common across Roman Britain, supplying and repairing the tools, agricultural implements, building fittings and nails which are so abundant from the majority of Roman sites. The large majority of ironwork recovered consists of scrap, the offcuts and other fragments which were discarded as unsuitable for reworking. It is interesting and possibly significant that among the very few more complete or serviceable iron items was the hammer. Is it possible that this was a closure or some other structured deposit? Clearly the most significant aspect of the Roman site at Bancan Road is the ironworking evidence, and much of the post-excavation analysis will be directed at this. The large quantities of ironworking residues and seemingly in situ hammer scale from working floors make this a significant assemblage, and one which has good potential to provide further information on the scale and nature of the ironworking and the use of fuels. Work on this material, including SEM investigation of thin section slag samples, is ongoing by David Dunworth. We are hoping to get results of the analysis in the next few months. Analysis on the site and its artefactual assemblage will be concluded this year. Following this, it is hoped that a collaborative approach can be taken to publication to integrate the results of Cotswold Archaeology's investigations and those of Wessex Archaeology on the school site. This, we hope, will allow for the best appreciation of the site, its artefactual, faunal and industrial material. Thank you.